Buongiorno, siamo qua per la conferenza stampa del nostro film di apertura, è un film in concorso, La La Land, e presento brevemente gli ospiti al tavolo, a partire da destra il produttore Jordan Horowitz, il produttore Fred Berger, il regista sceneggiatore del film Damien Chazelle, la coprotagonista Emma Stone e il produttore Mark Platt. È una breve comunicazione da fare, il film uscirà in Italia il 26 gennaio grazie a Leone Film Group e Rai Cinema, distribuito da 01. Prima di darvi la parola vorrei, I would like to ask, first to set it out for questions, I'd like to ask a question myself from Damien. Damien, your first feature was a musical. What it is that makes you so interested and loving of this particular genre?
Yeah, I'm new here. I just want to very quickly just first say what an honor it is to be here in Venice. It's just been a dream to come here and show the movie here. And obviously, like everyone, I'm such a huge lover of Italian culture, Italian cinema, Italian food. So being here, I came here a week early and to celebrate. And I was, I heard about the last week, the earthquake that hit, and I just wanted to say on behalf of us in the film, before any questions, just that obviously our thoughts and prayers go out to anyone affected by it. And to answer the question about musicals,
Musical,
right?
yes.
Well, I mean, in a way, I mean, maybe it's not so much a non sequitur from what I said before, in the sense that I think now more than ever we need hope and romance on the screen, and I think that there's something about musicals that just get at something that only movies can do, that idea of movies as a dreamland, movies as the language of our dreams, and movies as a way of expressing a world in which you break into song, that emotions can violate the rules of reality. There's something really simple and beautiful about that, and it's kind of part of what movies are all about, I think.
Se alzate la mano, c'è una domanda qua.
Following up a little bit on that question, hello everybody. It's funny, for years they've always said that musicals were a dying art, which is kind of ironic. That's what you say in the film about jazz. So in a way, do musicals have to be jazzed up, have to give it some new electronic beat, like as you did in this film, to kind of make it accessible to a younger audience?
I mean, I think in a way I think in a way it's almost the reverse, in the sense that I think there's a reason why the older musicals are timeless, and it has to do with their simplicity. It has to do with not overcutting. It has to do with being very kind of truthful about when people break into song, not trying to force songs in, but allowing the emotions to dictate the songs. So I think, all of us here at this table, like we talked a lot about, okay, how do you justify a musical today? And we found, ironically, that the way to justify today was actually going back to a lot of those traditions and trying to think, what are today's emotions that can lead to a musical number? And just trying to make it as simple as that that no one breaks into song unless it's emotionally justified in some way. But then once you allow yourself that possibility, then you have a responsibility to go all the way. So I think that's another thing that hopefully, can work for a modern audience, that the musical as a genre allows you to go all the way in a way that other genres don't.
And Emma, how did you like that experience of just bursting into song when the emotion came up?
Oh, it was perfect for me. No, I absolutely loved it. I've loved musicals since I went and saw Les Mis when I was 8 on stage. So bursting into song has always been a real dream of mine. So I'm very grateful to Damien for giving me the chance.
There's a question right there.
Buongiorno, Lara Ferrari del quotidiano nazionale, QN.net. Una domanda per Emma Stone e una per Damien Chazelle.
Aspetti signore un attimo che metto.
Sì. Okay. E ad Emma, che ha esordito proprio nei musical fin da bambina, chiederei se ha un episodio da ricordare visto che noi vediamo nel film è tratteggiato benissimo proprio la frustrazione che provano questi due ragazzi, che ognuno con un sogno da affermare, e la loro difficoltà quotidiana nel farlo. Se lei ha un episodio che assomiglia un po' a quello del suo personaggio, cioè anche di frustrazione di non riuscire a realizzare quello che vuole realizzare. E al regista invece intanto non sono frequenti gli applausi che abbiamo visto stamattina alla proiezione per la stampa dopo la prima scena aperta proprio, ed è stato bellissimo. A lui chiederei invece un commento su Los Angeles, cioè se è veramente una città così castrante come sembra emergere nel film tutt'oggi, per chi ha un sogno da coltivare e prova a realizzarlo. Grazie.
Damien and I spoke for a while about some incidents I had had at auditions or experiences that I had had when I first moved to Los Angeles when I was 15 to try to be an actor. And I had a few humiliating audition stories. But what I admire so much, I think, about Mia is it never really gets to the point, or it never got to the point for me where I wrote something on my own and put it out there for the world to see, and then had the kind of experiences she has where she decides to kind of pack it in for at least a moment. So it never quite got to that point for me, and yet I don't feel like I was ever quite as brave as she is in putting herself out there in that way. So yes, I do relate to it, but I don't know that if I have an episode that was quite as devastating.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. I think I think LA is. I've lived in LA now for about 9 years, and I remember when I first moved there. There's something about the loneliness in LA. I think when you first when you don't know that many people there, it's not a city that offers itself up to you, and it was really important to me and to all of us. I remember I first met Fred and Jordan when we were all somewhat recent LA transplants from the East Coast, and we were all talking a little bit about the things we love about LA, but also the things we hate about LA, and could you reconcile the two in a way? So the idea of this movie in terms of LA in it was to build from all the cliches that we make fun of about LA, the traffic, the terrible parties, the celebrity culture, the shallowness, but then try to maybe build from that to an actual love letter, try to see what is beautiful underneath the surface. And there is something very poetic about the city, I think, about a city that's just built by people with these unrealistic dreams, and people who just kind of put it all on the line for that.
Damien, can you also add something? Perhaps the producer can also get to this. The way you photographed LA, because it's very specific, it's very beautiful, it's very lush. You have some landmark places, you have some movie places, and you can see paintings in it. I mean, you can see a visual research that is very profound in the film. I think it might be interesting for you to elaborate, and if they want to also join.
Yeah, I'll jump in just quickly in the sense that I owe a lot of that to Lena Sandgren, our genius of a DP, who similarly, originally an outsider, moved to LA, and I think I was interested in that kind of perspective in a way, someone who's encountering the city in a way that still feels new, still feels fresh. I wanted the movie to kind of feel like that, even to people who've lived in LA for a long time, like a lot of us have. That you try to capture a little bit of what LA feels like the first time you see it. It doesn't feel like a real place, and for better or for worse. So the movie had to feel a little bit like a dream, yet still a dream that took place in the real world. And that was all about how Linus moved his camera, the color palette he wanted to use, and the time of day we would shoot, which really frustrated the producers, I think, of having to shoot everything between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m., which is difficult when you're doing 6-minute dance numbers, So all of that kind of was part of that process.
C'è una signora qua?
Hi. I have a question to Mr. Chazelle, and thanks for this uplifting movie. And I used to play music, and for me, your movie was like a kind of mixture of crescendos and decrescendos. So do you think like this when you're writing or directing a movie? Do you think like it's kind of a musical piece? Of course, it's a musical piece because it's a musical, but if you know what I mean, if you have it first or you write it and then you adjust it. And I have just one question, because now maybe it's the only chance I can also ask in addition. At the opening scene, did you think about the famous video for R.E.M., Everybody Hurts?
Yeah, though I mean, yeah, I did. But though I think like especially, you know, obviously being in Italy now, I mean, to me, the iconic traffic jam in movies is 8.5, and, you know, also a movie about movies, and Mastroianni rising from his car. And it's that same idea of being trapped and just, you resort to fantasy to get out of it. It's what I wish I could do in real life. Either float out of the car in the traffic jam or dance. Yeah, I mean, I'm a musician myself. I grew up playing music, so I think whether I want it to or not, music is always going to inform anything I do and the way I make it, whether it's about music or not. And one thing that was important to all of us making this movie was that even when it wasn't a song on screen, even during the non-musical parts, that it still feel musical, that the camera still move in a way that felt musical, and that the actors, I think like Emma and I probably talked about the rhythms of her speech patterns as much as we talked about, you know, the singing. You know, the idea was to try to have a continuum through every part of the movie.
I'm Laura from London. To Damien and Emma, though very surreal in the musical numbers that came into the movie, the script and the characters themselves are very, very real. What do you hope that young people entering the industry today will take from this?
Why don't I start? Yeah, I mean, in a way that was the whole idea of the movie from the outset, from its earliest days, was trying to think, okay, can you take the magic of the old-fashioned musical that we all grew up loving, but make it about real life today, make it about real people where things don't always work out, where, you know, the reality doesn't always live up to the dream. So the movie had to reflect both of those things. So it was really important to ground every moment of it, and that's why I was so lucky to work with someone like Emma or someone like Ryan, just actors of that caliber who questioned every line, who looked at every moment with an eye towards, you know, how can we really invest this with as much realism and character authenticity as possible, even though it's a fantasy. In fact, precisely because it's a fantasy, because it's only with the real backdrop that I think the fantasy works at all.
And I would say that what I would hope young people would take away from it is, I don't know if you remember when Conan O'Brien left his show. I don't know if you all saw that. But he made a speech at the end of it, and he said to let go of cynicism, and that cynicism was the ugliest quality to him. And I think something about Damien and what Damien created, and the hopefulness and the joy and the beauty of this medium, but also this story, is about, not that there aren't cynical moments where the characters slip into a kind of cynicism about what they're going through, but this movie is in no way cynical. It's about dreaming and hoping and working towards something to achieve something. And I think young people have fallen into a lot of cynicism and making fun of things and pointing out the flaws in everything. And this movie is anything but that. So it's a huge joy to be a part of it and to show it to young people that this is what I hope young people will do, is work hard to achieve their dreams and hope instead of be cynical.
Hello. Hi, Helen Barlow from Australia. Damien, we met on the Sundance red carpet before the premiere of Whiplash, and you were talking about this movie then already. I mean, how did the immense success of Whiplash affect this movie? It's an interesting subject, given the subject of this movie, in fact. Did you get more money for it? Were you able to go bigger? And Emma, I mean, I believe then that Miles Teller was possibly going to be the lead and in this movie. And Emma, you've worked so much with Ryan in the past. Was it a great thing to do a musical with your old buddy?
Yeah, no, it's true that I'd been nursing fantasies of making this movie for a while, but it just felt like fantasy for the longest time, which maybe is appropriate for the movie. And but yeah, by the time I was at Sundance with Whiplash, the script was written, most of the music was written, and you know, certainly Whiplash doing well helped open the doors, but you know, it was still a big gamble, and and some of the people are in the audience who took that gamble and you know opened their doors to let us make this movie in the most idealized way possible. So I still pinch myself a little bit that you know that it happened, but it was you know, again, very appropriate to the movie. I guess it was definitely a dream come true and a dream that I'd held for a long time.
And yes, I mean, to work with Ryan again, who is my buddy, it's really, it's wonderful to get to work with someone that you know and trust and respect so much as an actor and as a human being. So it was great.
What do you think you discover about him in this?
Maybe his musical ability, and did you discover more about yourself? I know you've been on Broadway, so maybe you're more of an old hand at it.
I don't think so. I knew he could sing and dance, but we had to learn to ballroom dance together. So once you've learned to ballroom dance with somebody, I mean, you've learned everything you need to know. If you want to get to know someone, take some ballroom dancing classes with them. He's very good at leading.
Beh, allora, la ringrazio per aver citato Mancello Mastroianni, perché io questa mattina vedendo il film ho pensato che la prima stupenda sequenza era un miscuglio tra West Side Story e 8,5. Qualcuno mi ha detto che ero matto, poi invece me l'ha confermato, grazie. È un film bellissimo che ha dentro di sé veramente una cinefilia stupenda, si vede che lei è un grande amante del cinema, ma a mio parere il film l'ho apprezzato, me lo deve dire, perché di fatto alla fine ribalta il concetto che c'era nel musical di Happy End, a parte qualche eccezione, per cui il sogno era uguale alla vita, eccetera, perché il film alla fine è molto amaro, c'è il musical che è sogno, però la realtà è un'altra cosa. Questo nel musical non è mai stato detto. E questo a mio parere è il grande valore del film. Non c'è cinismo, però c'è amarezza. Cosa che nel musical non c'era. E questo rende grande il film a mio parere. Oltre a tutto il fatto di conoscere come si facevano i musical e rappresentarlo. Chiedo se è vero per questa cosa qua, perché mi sembra che questa componente nel musical una volta non c'era. Ed è la grandezza del film.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing I wouldn't call it bitterness. I guess I would call it, I don't know, melancholy, in the sense that I think that the characters at the end are better off for having met each other and having, to me, and that just might be my personal preference, but I find the most romantic movies actually where the people don't wind up together, because happily ever after isn't, you know, a lot of things can happen after happily ever after, and but when you have two people who share a memory, there's something very pure about that, and nothing can taint that memory. But it is true that we were definitely, especially in the latter part of the movie, trying to traffic in emotions that a lot of the musicals we were paying homage to didn't traffic in. The one big exception I would say would be Jacques Demy with his French musicals like Les Parapluies de Cherbourg and movies like that did try to combine those emotions a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think the idea was, as I said earlier, to try to take the old musical, but grounded in real life, where things don't always exactly work out.
This question's for Joshua. But first I wanted to say, the opening of the film, I really felt like I was sitting on the 405. And then the song started, and all the way throughout the film, the music just really really got me. And I know you wrote most of the songs, and I was wondering.
No.
Justin's not here, the composer.
He's one of the producers. He's not the writer of the music. It's a similar name, but it's not the same.
It's a close name.
Yeah, it's a close
Different
name,
though.
but it's not the same person.
Made for a lot of
So,
entertainment during the
Well,
shoot.
let me just say I really enjoyed the music.
Oh, it's wonderful, yeah.
Thank you. Jordan, you could take credit for.
I did write the music. Yeah.
But perhaps, Damien, you can talk a little bit about your collaboration with Justin, because it's such, it goes back for 3 films, and it's really relevant, and it's growing,
Well, I've known Justin since we were 18. We played in a band together, and the first time Fred and Jordan met Justin was when I brought them over to his apartment, and their first impression of him was the apartment is completely empty, except for a piano and a poster of Singing in the Rain and a poster of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. And so I think they were like really kind of somewhat horrified.
The grand piano, not the keyboard.
Right, by this monomaniacal person. But that's what I've always loved about Justin, and we have this relationship where, we're very close collaborators, and so he was writing the music as I was writing the script, as we were developing the story, and then of course, the music and story wound up adapting, once Emma and Mark came on board, and once it got fully cast, everything was a constant dialogue, and he was just there as a constant presence during the entire process. So I would definitely consider him, as much an auteur of the movie as anyone.
There's a gentleman here.
Well, congratulations, Gloria Scola from Spain. About the ending, right here, sorry. About the ending, I want to insist on the ending. Why did you choose not to give it a happy ending? Is a message of the film that you cannot have it all, that if you follow your professional or your artistic dreams, then you have to give up true love? If you can elaborate on that, please. And then, are you closer in your influences of Stanley Donen or Grease, like the musical influences? And for Emma Stone, congratulations again. What's the most outstanding thing about Damien Chazelle? Because he's very young, he's very talented. We just saw Whiplash and this film. So if you can tell us about that. Thank you very much.
It's a great question. It's really great. Right. I mean, the ending. In a way, it would never ended any other way. Like it was always. We knew what we were building up to, and I knew not just that they couldn't wind up together, but that it was trying to hit that double chord, at the end where there's happiness but there's sadness, and it's something that I think musicals can do. Musicals obviously make you very happy in their essence, but the song always ends at a certain point. I always find there's something kind of tragic about any Fred and Ginger dance ending and the return to real life. So that was kind of always beautiful to me, something I wanted to try to hit on at the end of the movie. I love Grease, but I think Stanley Donen would be more, probably more where at least with this movie, because again, I think it's this idea of, that even the old Hollywood musicals in their way were kind of grounded. They felt sort of fleet-footed, and also the way the camera moves. I always really admired the lack of cutting and the way that the camera was as choreographed as the dancers in a lot of those old musicals, and you treated the camera like a dancer or like a counterpart to the dance, and that was something very important to how we shot the movie.
All right, you ready? I would say, you said that he is very young and talented, and of course that is true. It sort of, I guess, goes back to what I was talking about before in the idea of being a young person that's putting yourself out there, creating something from scratch with all your heart. He's doing that. And on top of that, I think that a lot of young people that are doing that would maybe be really, really, holding tough to, especially a movie that is such a vision, he had such a clear vision for it, would be really holding on to all of their ideas and fighting hard for everything. He's easily the most collaborative director, writer that I've ever worked with. And made it feel so comfortable. Like if I ever had an idea, a thought, an argument, an opinion, a constant thing to say, he was so open and so collaborative and malleable, yet he never lost his vision of the film. And that's just rare for anyone of any age that's made a jillion movies. He's somehow able to bridge both of those things, and I think he's truly extraordinary. I'm just kidding. He's garbage.
Sì, una domanda per Damien Chazelle in italiano. In italiano? Complimenti per il film. Volevo tornare un attimo sul rapporto con la parte iconica, perché entrambi i personaggi sono circondati dalle icone, sia Emma ha un poster in camera di Ingrid Bergman e sia il personaggio di Ryan cita riferimenti musicali. La mia domanda per Damien Chazelle è il rapporto con le icone del passato, quanto è importante per lui come artista e glielo chiedo a livello musicale, quanto lo hanno formato, perché sul cinema ha già citato Stalledone, però volevo entrare nel dettaglio e chiedere di condividere quali sono stati i suoi riferimenti più importanti, visto che il film tocca anche la musica anni 80, quindi nel senso si passa dal jazz alla musica anni 80 con Take On Me da Yeah, cioè nel senso c'è un mix straordinario, c'è un ponte musicale che è affascinante, quindi non è soltanto insomma, la domanda è questa, però i miei complimenti anche per l'esercizio di stile che ha fatto, per la grande lezione di cinema che ci ha regalato. Grazie.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I've been a movie buff my whole life and also a musician for part of my life, so I think even if I didn't want to have influences, I would. Like, the stuff just kind of bleeds into what you do. So I think, but this was a particular kind of movie where, in a way, you wanted to let the floodgates open, you know, and it was about trying to create something new out of those influences and out of, you know, trying to create something modern out of the old, and always that balance. So we did think of it as sort of a bridge or a kind of balancing act the entire time. I remember when we were in prep, we were all kind of almost living together in these warehouses in the valley of LA, and you know, all the departments, costumes, dance, you know, music, camera, we were all together, and every week we'd meet up and screen a movie, and it would either be Singing in the Rain or Top Hat or The Young Girls of Rochefort or The Bandwagon or something of that ilk. But it was always, but I think the question between all of us was always, okay, how do you take those movies we love that were made 50, 60 years ago and bring them into today? And how do you make something that's distinctive that feels like Los Angeles today, but imbued with, as you say, those icons, whether it's the landmarks of LA or the landmarks of movie history?
Mark, you produced some pretty big musical, both for stage and for Hollywood. What is different from this? How would you describe the difference from a producer point of view, and why it's so innovative?
Well, producing a musical, because there's so many more variables in the storytelling, because you have to integrate story and narrative and acting and design with music, and in the storytelling. What I would say about this experience, it's different than producing a film like Nine or Into the Woods or a stage musical like Wicked, really comes down to the storyteller, which would be Damien. And so the whole experience for me, because I'm the oldest one here, as you can tell, sort of the old guard here, to work with such a wonderful young team of extraordinary producers like Fred and Jordan, and to get to see a filmmaker like Damien. All of you in this room have had a dream at some point in your life, which is what the film is about. And to watch a young filmmaker, and I've been very fortunate to produce some extraordinary filmmakers, from Ang Lee to Steven Spielberg to Rob Marshall, to work with a young filmmaker who takes such passion and meticulousness and love of film, which you can feel in every frame of the film, and joy in his work, was the real distinctive characteristic of my experience on this film. And I'll tell you one story to illustrate. On the very last day of shooting, we had the most wonderful experience. The very last day, we had a day shoot. So we brought no lights. It was just shooting in the day. And we shot the last day of shooting, and the sun's going down, and Damien has the camera literally on his shoulder. He's not the operator, but he took the camera, and he's trying to come up with more shots, and the sun goes down, and now it's pitch black in Los Angeles. And Damien says, let's go for the next shot. And I walked up to him, and I said to him, Damien, I think it's time to put the camera down. The film is over, and there's no more light. And he looked at me with the saddest eyes in the world and begrudgingly gave me the camera. So that's my distinctive story about Damien.
They're telling me we have to go, but I'll give you one more, and then I wrap it.
Turinifattoquotidiano.it, una domanda al regista. Visto nel film si parla di gesti rivoluzionari, ci sono alcune battute in cui i protagonisti parlano di gesti rivoluzionari. Allora volevo chiedergli se come artista c'è qualche gesto rivoluzionario della contemporaneità che ammira, fatto da qualcuno.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think that in a way it's again that sort of, you know, what is going to feel new, what's going to feel contemporary, what's going to feel, you know, even ahead of our time. It's always kind of impossible to define. So in a way, you can't really, you try not to think of anything like that. You try to just burrow into. In a way, the process of making this movie was very intimate and it felt like a small movie in terms of how we made it. It's, you know, it starts off with, at least on my part, just writing something I'd like to see, you know, and so that's informed by movies I've loved that were made before me, you know, and legends I admire who came before me. But at the same time, I think the contemporary element and you know, comes from, I'd say less from revolutionary acts, but more just everyday life, just stuff that you feel walking down the street, you know, in a time that you had your own heart broken, or a time that you know, my equivalent of bad auditions were going up for writing jobs and being told, you know, that, well, just being told to get out of the room, basically. And we all have those, you know, anyone who's ever had a dream has memories of the dreams being shattered or the dreams not being realized. So those emotions, I remember every rejection letter I've ever gotten. So you know, that works its way in any scene I write. So, so you try to make it as personal as possible, whether it's a contemporary movie or whether it's not. It has to be about you.
And I'm really, really sorry I asked for more time, but there is none. I thank our guest here.